You know what is fascinating about the human brain? The left hemisphere controls the right side of your body. The right hemisphere controls the left. And for hundreds of millions of years, evolution decided that roughly 90% of all humans would be right-handed. The NFL was built with right-handed quarterbacks in mind. The footwork, the mechanics, the throwing lanes, all of it designed for a world where the ball comes out of the right hand. And yet, some of the most electric, most dangerous, most unforgettable moments in professional football history were created by men who threw from the other side. Men who did everything backwards and somehow still made defensive coordinators lose sleep on Saturday nights. Today we are watching the 10 greatest left-handed quarterbacks in NFL history. 10 men who defied the norm, rewrote record books, and proved that greatness does not care which hand holds the ball. From a two-time Super Bowl champion who threw 6 touchdown passes on the biggest stage in football, to a man nicknamed the Snake who had John Madden calling him the smartest quarterback he ever coached, to an unstoppable force who shattered every rushing record ever put in front of a quarterback, these 10 players built legacies that belong to the ages. Let us get into it. We start with the most polarizing quarterback in modern NFL history, Tim Tebow. Drafted 25th overall by the Denver Broncos in 2010, Tebow was a two-time BCS national champion at Florida and one of the most decorated college football players of his generation. In the NFL, his detractors were loud and his supporters were louder. But here is what nobody can argue with. January 8, 2012, Denver Broncos versus the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC wildcard playoff game. Pittsburgh had the #1 ranked defense in the entire NFL that season. Nobody gave Denver a realistic chance. Tebow had been shaky down the stretch of the regular season. And then the game started. Tebow completed 10 passes. Those 10 completions went for 316 yards. He ran for another 50 yards and a touchdown. His passer rating for the game was 125.6, the highest in Denver Broncos postseason history at that time. On the very first play of overtime, he dropped back, found Demaryius Thomas on a 15-yard slant route, and Thomas turned it into an 80-yard touchdown to end the game 29-23. It was over in 11 seconds, the shortest overtime in NFL playoff history. Using ESPN's QBR formula, Tebow posted a 97.3 out of 100 for that performance, the highest score ever recorded in the metrics history since 2008. He was never able to replicate those moments consistently, and his NFL career was brief. But the 2011 Broncos won 7 games in a row with him leading fourth-quarter comebacks, and that playoff win over Pittsburgh will live in NFL lore forever. Tebow belongs on this list for what he did when the moment was absolutely as big as it gets.
Bobby Douglas does not get nearly enough credit in these conversations, and that needs to change. Douglas played in the NFL from 1969 to 1978, spending most of his career with the Chicago Bears before finishing with the New Orleans Saints, San Diego Chargers, and Green Bay Packers. What made Douglas remarkable was that he was ahead of his time. In an era when quarterbacks were expected to hand off, drop back, and throw from the pocket, Douglas was doing something that would not become mainstream for another 40 years. He ran. He ran relentlessly, and he ran with power. In 1972, Bobby Douglas rushed for 968 yards as a quarterback. That record stood as the most rushing yards ever gained in a single season by an NFL quarterback for 34 years. Michael Vick broke it in 2006. For 3.5 decades, no quarterback in the history of professional football had run for more yards in a single season than a left-handed quarterback from Kansas who played for the Chicago Bears. He threw for over 3,500 passing yards during his career and had a rifle for an arm, but injuries and inconsistency limited his full potential. Even so, the rushing record alone cements his place in this conversation and in NFL history. If you want to talk about pioneers, Jim Zorn deserves that conversation. When the Seattle Seahawks entered the NFL as an expansion franchise in 1976, they needed a quarterback to build around. They found one in Jim Zorn, an undrafted left-handed signal caller out of Cal Poly Pomona who nobody else wanted. Zorn became the first ever starting quarterback in Seahawks franchise history and built that offense from the ground up with essentially nothing around him. In 1978, he threw for 3,283 yards, which was remarkable production for a team still finding its footing in the league. He threw for over 20,000 yards in his career and guided Seattle to their first-ever winning season in franchise history. Beyond the numbers, Jim Zorn did something that mattered even more. He mentored a young receiver named Steve Largent, who would go on to become one of the greatest wide receivers in NFL history and a Pro Football Hall of Famer. The chemistry those two built was the foundation of the Seahawks franchise in its earliest years. Jim Zorn was selected to the Pro Bowl in 1979 and remains one of the most important figures in the history of that franchise. For a left-handed quarterback who got no chances coming out of college, what he built in Seattle was nothing short of remarkable. Paul McDonald is perhaps the most underrated name on this list. A fourth-round pick out of USC in 1980, McDonald stepped into one of the most challenging situations any young quarterback can face. He was the backup to Brian Sipe in Cleveland, and when his opportunity arrived, he performed. What McDonald brought to the table was accuracy and football intelligence. He was a meticulous, cerebral quarterback who understood leverage, coverage recognition, and timing before most players in the league had sophisticated film study resources. He led the Browns' offense during a transitional period and put genuine numbers on the board. His career was limited by injuries and roster changes, but among the left-handed quarterbacks of his era, McDonald stood out for his technical precision and his ability to move an offense against quality competition. He's a significant piece of the history of left-handed quarterbacks in this league. Scott Mitchell entered the NFL as a backup to Dan Marino in Miami, which means his development was essentially in the hands of one of the greatest quarterbacks who ever lived. When Marino went down with a season-ending Achilles injury in 1993, Mitchell stepped in and played some outstanding football. His true prime arrived in Detroit. Playing for the Lions from 1994 to 1998, Mitchell put together some of the most prolific passing seasons of the mid-1990s. In 1995, he threw for 4,338 yards and 32 touchdowns, making him one of the most productive quarterbacks in the entire NFL that season. He was selected to the Pro Bowl that year, a well-deserved recognition for a quarterback performing at an elite level. Mitchell had a powerful arm, excellent pocket presence, and the ability to deliver the ball down the field with authority. He worked alongside some gifted receivers in Detroit and made them all better. His career statistics of over 14,000 passing yards and 95 touchdowns represent a genuinely strong body of work. Mitchell is a name that deserves far more respect in these discussions than he typically receives. Mark Brunell is one of the most important quarterbacks in NFL history, and the reasons why go far beyond his statistics. He was drafted in the 5th round by the Green Bay Packers in 1993. He spent 2 years backing up Brett Favre in Green Bay. Then he was traded to a brand new expansion franchise in Jacksonville, Florida, a team that had never played a single NFL game. What he built there was extraordinary. In his very first full season as a starter in 1996, Brunell led the NFL in passing yards with 4,367. He took an expansion franchise that was 1 year old into the AFC Championship game. He did things with that Jacksonville offense that nobody in their right mind expected an expansion team to do. Then he led the Jaguars to 4 consecutive playoff appearances in their first 5 seasons, the first expansion team in NFL history to accomplish that. Brunell made 3 Pro Bowls, won the Pro Bowl MVP in 1997, and finished his 17-year career with 32,022 passing yards and 184 touchdown passes. Every major passing record in Jacksonville Jaguars history belongs to him. He later won a Super Bowl ring with the New Orleans Saints in Super Bowl 44, capping a career that started with 0 expectations and ended with a championship. He was dangerous with his legs, extraordinarily accurate with his arm, and one of the most clutch performers of his generation. Mark Brunell built a franchise with his left hand and made it look easy. Michael Vick changed the position of quarterback in the National Football League. That is not an exaggeration. That is simply what happened. Selected with the first overall pick of the 2001 NFL Draft, Vick arrived in Atlanta with a combination of physical gifts that the league had never seen at the quarterback position. He had a cannon for an arm, he was faster than most wide receivers and running backs in the league, and he was left-handed, which created angles and throwing lanes that defensive coordinators had no blueprint to stop. Vick holds the all-time NFL record for career rushing yards by a quarterback with 6,109 yards. He also holds the single-season record for rushing yards by a quarterback, running for 1,039 yards in 2006. Those are not records that were close to being broken. They're records by a margin that left every other quarterback in the dust. He made 4 Pro Bowls, threw for 22,464 career passing yards and 133 touchdowns, and added another 36 rushing touchdowns on the ground. His 2010 comeback season with the Philadelphia Eagles, after missing 2 seasons, produced 3,018 yards and 21 touchdowns in just 12 games and earned him Comeback Player of the Year honors. At his absolute peak, Michael Vick was the most dangerous player on a football field at any position. The fact that he did everything from the left side made the angles even more unnatural for defenders to compute. There will never be another one like him. Norman Julius Esiason, the name they gave him at birth. Boomer, the name the world knew him by, and the 1988 Cincinnati Bengals knew him as something else entirely, the most valuable player in the National Football League. Esiason was drafted in the 2nd round by the Bengals in 1984 out of Maryland, where he had set 17 program records. By 1988, he had become the engine of one of the most dangerous offenses in the NFL, running Sam Wyche's no-huddle attack with a precision and intelligence that left defenses completely unprepared. In 1988, Esiason led the entire NFL with a quarterback rating of 97.4. He threw for 57.5% of his passes, threw for 3,572 yards and 28 touchdowns, and guided Cincinnati to a 12-4 record. The Bengals defeated Seattle and then Buffalo in the playoffs before reaching Super Bowl 23, where they fell to Joe Montana and the San Francisco 49ers 20-16 in one of the greatest Super Bowls ever played. It was not for lack of Esiason's effort or leadership. He was named NFL Most Valuable Player that season. He made 4 Pro Bowls across his 14-year career. He won the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award in 1995 for his charitable work, particularly his efforts in raising awareness and funding for cystic fibrosis research after his son Gunnar was diagnosed with the disease. His career final numbers: 37,920 passing yards and 247 touchdown passes. He holds the all-time NFL records for left-handed quarterbacks in career passing yards, career touchdown passes, and career completions. When you talk about the greatest left-handed passers the game has ever seen purely from a traditional quarterback standpoint, Esiason's name belongs in a very short and very elite conversation. Kenny Stabler, the Snake. The man who John Madden called a brilliant quarterback with a brilliant football mind. The field general who made the Oakland Raiders one of the most feared franchises in the history of professional football. Stabler was drafted in the 2nd round by the Raiders in 1968. He spent time learning the position behind Darryl LaMonica before becoming the full-time starter in 1973. What he built from that point forward was a dynasty. From 1973 through 1977, Ken Stabler led the Oakland Raiders to 5 consecutive AFC Championship games, 5 in a row. No other quarterback since the AFL-NFL merger had done that. In 1974, he was named NFL Most Valuable Player. In 1976, he led the league in passing with a passer rating of 103.4, an extraordinary number for that era of football, and led the Raiders to Super Bowl 11, where they defeated the Minnesota Vikings 32-14, Oakland's first Super Bowl championship. During his 10 seasons in Oakland, Stabler was named All-Pro twice, All-AFC 3 times, and selected to 4 Pro Bowls. He was the Raiders' all-time leader in passing yards and touchdown passes when he left the franchise. His career totals of 27,938 yards and 194 touchdowns across 15 NFL seasons represent a body of work built in an era of far less pass-friendly rules and far more physical play. What made Stabler so special went beyond the statistics. He played with a calm and a confidence under pressure that his teammates fed off completely. His poise in the 4th quarter was supernatural. He engineered game-winning drives against defenses that knew exactly what he was going to do and could not stop it anyway. Fred Biletnikoff, his Hall of Fame receiver, described Stabler's on-field intelligence as something he had never seen from another quarterback. Stabler passed away in July 2015. He was posthumously inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2016. The Snake belongs not just on this list, but in the broader conversation about the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, regardless of which hand they used. There was never any other choice for number one. Steve Young is the greatest left-handed quarterback in the history of the National Football League, and it is not close. Young came into the league through a complicated path: the Los Angeles Express of the USFL, a trade to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, then the San Francisco 49ers, where he spent the first several years of his career backing up Joe Montana, arguably the greatest quarterback who ever lived. Most players in that position either get traded, get bitter, or fade away. Steve Young got better. When Montana's injuries finally opened the door for Young to start full-time in 1991, he took everything that had been waiting inside him and put it on the field. He led the NFL in completion percentage 5 times. He led the NFL in yards per passing attempt 5 times. He led the NFL in touchdown passes 4 times. He won the NFL Most Valuable Player Award in 1992 and again in 1994. He made 7 consecutive Pro Bowls from 1992 through 1998. And then came January 29, 1995, Super Bowl 29, the San Francisco 49ers versus the San Diego Chargers. Steve Young walked into that stadium carrying years of doubt, years of living in Montana's shadow, years of people questioning whether he could win the big one. He answered every single question at once. Steve Young completed 24 of 36 passes for 325 yards. He threw 6 touchdown passes in a single Super Bowl, a record that stands to this day. The 49ers won 49-26. Steve Young was named Super Bowl MVP. And when that final whistle blew, he ran around that field with his arms spread wide, and you understood in that moment exactly what it had cost him and exactly what it meant. His career totals: 33,124 passing yards, 232 touchdown passes, and 43 rushing touchdowns, the all-time career record for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback. He retired with a career passer rating of 96.8, which was the highest in NFL history at the time of his retirement. He held 6 passing titles, tied for the most in NFL history. In 2005, Steve Young was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was the first, and to this day, only left-handed quarterback ever to receive that honor. He threw with his left hand, he thought with every inch of his mind, and he played with a hunger that never once left him. Not in Tampa Bay, not backing up Montana, not in the NFC Championship losses to Dallas, and certainly not on that Sunday night in Miami when he finally got everything he had worked for. Steve Young is number one. There is no debate. 10 left-handed quarterbacks, 10 completely different stories. 10 men who walked onto NFL fields where everything was designed against them and left their marks on the greatest game in American sports. From Ken Stabler's ice-cold fourth-quarter command to Michael Vick doing things with his legs that had never existed before at the quarterback position. From Boomer Esiason's MVP season to Mark Brunell building a franchise from nothing. From Tim Tebow's miracle in Denver to Steve Young's 6-touchdown performance on the biggest stage in football. Left hand, different angle, same love for the game. If you think a player on this list deserved a different spot, drop it in the comments. The debate is open and we want to hear it. If you're new to the channel, subscribe right now because we have more NFL history content coming that you do not want to miss. Every player, every era, every record that changed the way we see this game. That is what we do here. See you in the next one.